Anyone who previously had different opinions about the Soviet Union is quickly cured of them here. The poverty is terrible. Not even the farmers have anything to eat. They beg from us. There are lice and filth everywhere. We have to be careful not to catch them from the inhabitants. These people know nothing else. They sit in their huts and pick lice off each other. They don't care if someone is watching. I'm tired of this workers' paradise. We'll be happy to leave here. In the past, we saw pictures of malnourished children. They weren't exaggerated. You can't believe it unless you've been here. Today we're going to dive into more brutal reports from German army soldiers during the war in the Soviet Union. Although yes, they were seeking resources in the East, that war was primarily existential. I was in Lemberg yesterday and saw a bloodbath. It was terrible. Many had their skin torn off. Men were castrated, had their eyes gouged out, their arms or legs cut off. Some were nailed to the wall. 30 to 40 were sealed in a small room and suffocated. About 650 people in this area must have died in such ways. The stench can only be endured if you smoke a cigarette and put a handkerchief over your nose. The Jews did most of this. Now they have to dig the graves. The culprits will be shot. Many have already died from the stench. In this city, they even opened graves and desecrated the corpses. It's terrible. One can hardly believe such people exist. We've had hard weeks behind us, and we are proud of our success against the Soviet enemy. Now we have time to recover from our efforts. I am proud to be German and to be a member of our wonderful army. Greet everyone back home. I am far away. Tell them that Germany is the most beautiful and cultivated country in the entire world. Everyone should be happy to be German and to serve a Führer like Adolf Hitler. There was a gray cloud over Lemberg when we arrived. The stench was barely tolerable. The Russians had been driven out of the city after a tough battle. 2 hours later, I found the source of the smell. The Bolsheviks and Jews had massacred 12,000 Germans and Ukrainians. I saw women with babies in their bellies hanging by their feet in the GPU prison. They cut off the noses, ears, eyes, fingers, hands, arms, and legs of other women. Some even had their hearts torn out. 300 orphans between 2 and 17 years old were nailed to the wall and massacred. After finishing the torture, they threw the people, most of whom were still alive, into a 3-meter deep pile in the basement, soaked them with gasoline, and set them on fire. It was terrible. We couldn't believe what would have happened to us if Bolshevism had reached us. The complainers and know-it-alls we still have in the Reich should see this. Then they would know what real Bolshevism is. They would fall to their knees and thank the Führer for saving Germany from such things. I and many other German soldiers saw this. We all thank the Führer for letting us see the Bolshevik paradise. We swore to root out this plague at the source. Since I have some time today, I felt it was my duty to write this so my co-workers back home can read it. We soldiers at the front saw this with our own eyes. We'll be able to tell much more later. We are fighting until final victory. I really can't describe what we saw in Lemberg. It's much, much worse than the German newspapers were able to describe. You have to have seen it. Even the rotten smell, noticeable from a long distance from the prison walls, was enough to make someone sick. And the scene itself, hundreds of men, women, and children murdered, horrifically mutilated. Men had their eyes gouged out. A pastor had his belly ripped open and the body of a dead baby inside. I could tell worse stories, but even these disturbed me, and I'm already used to such things by now. I saw the wonderful workers' paradise in the Soviet Union with all its terrible misery, and I wish that those who thought differently could spend a few weeks here to see and experience what we have. The misery and horror of Bolshevism are terrible. I hope that volunteering for our proud army might atone for my past sins, and that when I return home, you, dear party member, will accept me as an honest person. With that hope, I send you my warmest greetings. Heil Hitler. Everything I've seen of the so-called workers' paradise is anything but lovely. Every citizen who even slightly criticizes our efforts should be sent here. He would thank the Führer and the movement that such conditions are not found in our homeland. Animals in our care live in better conditions than the people here. Our successes so far have been great, and we will not stop until we have eradicated this evil root and branch, which will be a blessing for European culture and humanity. I wrote in my last 2 letters about Russian atrocities, and I could fill volumes more. But here's a bit more about the Soviet paradise. I'll especially tell about things that happened in Lemberg, Tarnopol, and Trumberla. I saw the prisons in Lemberg, and saw things that scarred me deeply. There were men with ears and noses cut off. They had nailed children alive by their hands and feet to the wall, massacring them. The blood was up to the ankles. It didn't matter if they were alive or not. They poured gasoline on the piles of bodies and set them on fire. The stench was horrible. In Trumberla, 7 Ukrainians were dragged from their beds after the Germans arrived. The next morning, their bodies were found in the forest, beaten beyond recognition. I saw all of this with my own eyes. It's not something I heard about. Feel free to tell others, especially those who still might think well of the Soviet Union. I always think how fortunate we are that this plague of humanity never reached our country. I don't believe that even years of preparation could make Germans capable of such atrocities. Even without the war, the people here were impoverished and exhausted. Only the elite lived well in palaces. Now the eyes of the people are opening. Anyone in Germany who still doesn't believe in the terrible crimes of communism should see for themselves and listen to the people. Happy Germany, as I always say. What we saw of the so-called Soviet paradise is worse than we ever imagined. Anyone back home who still has doubts should come here. All their doubts will disappear. Everywhere we go, the people are happy to be liberated from Bolshevism and look to the future with confidence. We, the soldiers, can tell those back home that he saved Germany and all of Europe from the Red Army. The battle is hard, but we know what we're fighting for, and confident in the Führer, we will win, with the hope of a victorious return. No matter what it costs, it's good that the Führer saw the danger in time. The battle had to come. Germany, what would have happened to you if this beastly and stupid horde had invaded our homeland? We have all sworn loyalty to Adolf Hitler, and we must keep it for our own sake, wherever we are. These letters end with statements of loyalty to the Führer and attacks on the murderous Jewish Bolshevik fraud. We have been able to provide only a small selection of the thoughts of German soldiers in this pamphlet. But these eyewitness reports are so persuasive and frightening in their truth that no one can ignore them. Mr. Churchill, these are your Bolshevik allies for whom you ask English churches to pray, and for whom English workers should forge new weapons. This is the culture of those you are protecting, Mr. Roosevelt. You want to save the world from the Nazi barbarians with their help. With their help, you are supposedly fighting for freedom and justice for smaller countries. And this, Mr. Stalin, is the judgment of millions of men on your Bolshevik policies. Men you hoped to recruit as cannon fodder for the world Bolshevik revolution. Conditions in the Soviet Union are far worse and more terrifying than National Socialism ever claimed. The Soviet Jews have hermetically sealed their terrorized nation from the rest of the world. Not even experts and enemies of Bolshevik doctrine could form a true picture of the real events in the region governed by Bolshevism. Not even the fantasies of the most fanatical opponents of Bolshevism could reach the true hopelessness of the situation. Revealed here in letters from German citizens at the front. The German soldiers saw the Soviet Union. They will never forget what they saw. Never again will anyone in Europe dare to excuse, let alone defend, Bolshevism and the results of its rule. There are few families in Germany today that do not have a relative, and therefore a witness of Bolshevism. These letters are already circulating within families and factories, villages, and local party groups. Now they are reaching millions who are working for victory, giving them a broader view of the experiences and impressions of their brothers and sons. No one will put down this pamphlet without being deeply moved. Their thoughts will then turn to the Führer, the man who, in the midst of Germany's deepest disgrace, was the first to recognize and oppose the communist enemy. The few SA and SS units that opposed the Jewish Bolshevik enemy when the terror of Moscow still prevailed in the streets of our major cities when the Red Revolution threatened entire states and provinces of the Reich, and the Foreign Legion of Moscow murdered German men on German soil, now have the entire German people with them. The massive columns of German regiments and divisions are striking Bolshevism deep into Russia. At the right moment and with care, the Führer, side by side with all awakened European nations, gave the command to save the West. The decision was difficult, the scale of the struggle vast, and the results tremendous. Everyone today can see that the order given on June 22, 1941, was the greatest decision in Europe's life. The Bolshevik armies now being destroyed by the blows of the German army, blows from which they will never recover, were ready to strike Europe. Despite treaties, the Bolshevik leaders were prepared to attack when the time was right. The supposed state of workers and soldiers had secret agreements with the plutocracies and capitalism. They were preparing the way for world Jewry to take over Central Europe. If Stalin's tanks and planes had crossed our borders, it would have meant the end of everything noble and beautiful in the world. Europe would have been filled with enslaved masses like the prisoners our soldiers find today in the East. An entire part of the world would have fallen into filth and misery had Adolf Hitler not intervened at the last moment to eliminate the criminal threat, once and for all. We must not forget, the criminals of Moscow are praised as heroes and defenders of culture every day by the English and American press. People in London and New York pray for these animals in human form, and thousands of Jewish editors, speakers, and broadcasters are recruiting young Americans to spill their blood for these subhumans. This lying and decaying world of plutocracy, along with its Bolshevik allies, cannot and will not win. No sacrifice is too great compared to what is at stake and what victory will bring us in the future. The letters from our soldiers during these decisive months will always remain a testimony of our just cause. Help us keep this project alive here on YouTube by subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, God bless you all, and see you soon.